ISIS has not explicitly claimed responsibility for any of these attacks, but the terror group says the perpetrators in Barcelona were its soldiers. Well, Lisa Daftari joins us now. She's the editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk and expert in the Middle East. So, Lisa, good to see you. What do you make of ISIS's claim? It sort of was hedged.
No, it's
or is it typical?
On par with what we've been seeing. What's unusual is the timing of the claim to be so close to the attacks. And not only that, more surprisingly, is that the perpetrator's still on the loose. They're still alive. Usually you'll see when one of them becomes a shaheed, a martyr, then they'll take claim right away. There's less of a chance of anything else getting out. They don't want the kind of evidence getting out, how these guys planned it. So when they die, they kind of subsequently take responsibility. Right now we're seeing it a little bit fishy, but I think ISIS, as they've shown us in the past, keep changing their game, and they basically know that law enforcement is watching them, and I think that that's the evolution of ISIS. They're masterful at running around the psyche of the Western counterterrorism machine.
Okay, well, let's just assume, as a safe assumption, that it was either inspired or directed by ISIS. All the indications are that, in your opinion, I guess, will there be more attacks just like this one we've seen? The closer coalition fighters get to the fall of Raqqa, ISIS's self-declared capital in Syria?
So obviously there's a correlation there, and I think that what a lot of reports show is that, well, ISIS is diminishing, ISIS is dwindling. Why? Because we're looking at only the land of ISIS. So as they do diminish, and they diminish in terms of their land and their influence in the caliphate, which is Syria and Iraq, we also need to look at where they're growing, obviously in recruiting, obviously in launching these local types of attacks. And what ISIS has done is put out memes and videos and brochures. I report on this a lot, is to show that you no longer need to come to the caliphate in order to learn how to be a soldier for ISIS. You can do so in your local town, and that's where we actually need you. And you don't need to know how to build a weapon using some sort of pressure cooker or whatever else. You can use any item that you have, like a car, like a kitchen knife, like an axe, and we've seen all these types of attacks. So I think that as we get closer and they do diminish in one way, they're absolutely growing and changing their messaging. Just yesterday, ISIS rolled out an email subscription service. And when you look at that, well, okay, fine, they're sending out more propaganda. But there's more to it. We're shutting them down on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Telegram. What are they doing? Sprouting up in their emails, meaning you can take us down, but we'll have the email addresses, which are so much harder to trace, and we can still reach our supporters.
The other thing, too, which also seems to be going on, is that they're translating their message into Spanish a lot
into
more.
12 languages. Every time their magazine comes out, it comes out in 12 languages, and languages that you would think are so obscure and have nothing to do with ISIS and their followers. But again, it comes back to this. Now, whether this was inspired or directed, whether these guys were born in Spain or not, coming from other countries, as we've seen in the Paris attacks, in Brussels, in London, etc. Each time it's a different story, but that's what's so scary about ISIS and what their ability to do, what their reach is, and who they're recruiting.
So the question then is, what is more dangerous? ISIS holding a great big piece of real estate in the Middle East as a caliphate, or ISIS online where you don't know where they are?
You nailed it. It's ISIS online where you don't know where they are. It's like putting out, feathers to the wind. How are you going to catch them? How are we, we shut down 250,000 Twitter accounts. That was the report about 4 months ago. Well, 250,000 more sprout up the next day. So how are you going to, again, they find their way, whether it's on the web, on the dark web, how to get the message out. And again, look at how low budget, low maintenance, and under the radar this attack was. All you need to do is take a car, whether your own or a rental, and ram it into people. I mean, this is the year 2017, that's the most primitive type of attack. And what did they do? They incited fear, they incited intimidation. That is the sheer definition of terrorism as it is. We're past the days of 9/11, of retreating and planning that type of attack. And I think that ISIS has mastered that psyche of the Western. And, again, this was in Barcelona. It was in a place where, again, we can say it's targeted towards Europe, but it's a place where a lot of American tourists go as well.
A lot of tourists from all around the world. A very popular spot, obviously.
So, very symbolic.
A soft target, which was symbolic as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Of course.
We're going to pause for